This Mass, of course, has been very touching for so many people in the community. Now, people inside the Basilica are going to make their way outside right now. They'll be staged so they can walk with Father Ted's casket to the Holy Cross Community Cemetery for the graveside services at his burial site.
Yeah, that procession will leave the Basilica and will make its way down St. Mary's Road to the west. For those of you who may not know, the cemetery is located just east of the intersection of St. Mary's Road and State Road 933.
Now, this procession, Jen, is going to be led by the clergy members who celebrated this funeral mass. They'll be followed by members of Father Hesburgh's own family. And Father Ted's body will follow them in a hearse.
They will. This is a walking procession, but there will be a couple of cars following the hearse for people who are not able to walk that distance to the cemetery. Behind those cars will be guests from the Basilica, and then finally members of the public who want to be part of that procession. The university estimates, though, that it may take about 30 minutes for the procession to wrap up all of this.
We are expecting there to be really a lot of people lining St. Mary's Road to pay their respects as this procession makes its way to the cemetery. And WSBT-22 Kelly Stavzinski is live outside Columba Hall right now. That's about halfway between the Basilica and the cemetery. Kelly, you seeing a lot of people on that route yet?
You know, Bob, up until about 15 or 20 minutes ago, we were not. But I'm going to get out of the shot now so you can take a look behind me. This is amazing. I have never seen anything like this before. Look at all of these people lining up, waiting to pay their respects to Father Ted as he goes through on this road to the cemetery where he will be laid to rest. A lot of these are students, and from what I have been told, they were watching the services inside where it was warm. I know that the Bartolo Hall, they had a place for students to watch the services there. We could also hear it from out here, and when they played the Notre Dame alma mater at the close of the funeral service, I can tell you students out here put their arm around each other just as they do at a home Notre Dame football game. It was very solemn, but still kind of celebratory at the same time. And here is what we expect to see once the procession leaves the Basilica. As you mentioned, a hearse will carry the body down St. Mary's Road to his final resting place at Holy Cross Community Cemetery. His fellow priests from the Congregation of the Holy Cross will walk beside him in that procession, just as Father Ted did for many of the priests who passed before him. It is very important to point out, and we heard Father Jenkins talk about this during the service, this procession from the Basilica to the cemetery is normal protocol for services with a priest from when a priest from the Holy Cross Order dies. And today, from the funeral we saw a short time ago to the procession, this is what Father Ted wanted. He made it very clear, and the university has said Father Hesburgh wanted his services to be simple. He strove for change and doing what's right in the world, but throughout his life, he remained so humble about all of his accomplishments. Obviously, the big difference is here, the fact that the university broadcast his funeral live, gave us permission to air it. There are huge crowds, as you can see, lining the procession route, and the university canceled all classes after 12:20 this afternoon, so students could be a part of it all. This is so important for some of them. I was just talking with some students, some alumni who came out here to see all of this and to be a part of this, and one woman was crying, tears streaming down her face, talking about the profound impact Father Ted had on her life as a student and then what she went on to do afterward. Another student I spoke with said, I probably wouldn't be here if not for Father Ted because he allowed women to come to the university, and this is where my mom and dad met. So a lot of happy memories here, a somber mood, and we're going to stay right here and bring it to you live as soon as we see that procession come down St. Mary's Road. Jennifer, Bob.
All right, Kelly, thanks very much. You know, the cemetery where Father Ted will be buried is steeped in tradition. It's incredible. As we mentioned, it is on the north side of St. Mary's Lake, and only priests and brothers of the Congregation of Holy Cross are buried there.
Yeah, Jen, the most striking thing that you'd really notice about the cemetery, it's really very plain. It's almost as though it's the feeling of the Arlington National Cemetery in Washington, D.C. All of the grave markers are simple crosses, and it really rings true with what Father Jenkins was saying about he lived a simple life, and it was going to be very simple in his burial as well. A simple white cross will be all that's marking his grave.
Which is what he wanted, exactly. Father Ted's gravesite will look identical to all of his brothers who passed before him. Very fitting tribute for a man who maintained all of his life that all he ever wanted to be was a Catholic priest.
WSBT-22's Annie Chang has been watching this funeral mass along with all of us. She's at the live desk. Annie?
Yeah, that's right, Bob. Jennifer, we heard from current university president Father John Jenkins first. He said the best way he knew how to write today's homily was to describe Father Ted's life in his totality. Father Jenkins went through all of Father Hesburgh's many accomplishments. Of course, becoming a priest, that was first and foremost the most important. Also, acting as a champion for civil rights, advising presidents, of course, going on to become president of the University of Notre Dame. Jenkins talked at length about how Father Ted built the university to what it is now, what we see it today. He ended his homily on a personal note, though, telling the story of one example when he saw Father Ted's kindness affect his own family.
When my invitation to President Obama to speak at our commencement caused an uproar, a number of people approached my mother to criticize the decision. She was understandably anxious about her son. Father Ted got wind of that, and without mentioning anything to me, he called my mother to reassure her. My mother has never in her life appreciated a phone call more. She had no more worries after that, and from that day forward, she and Father Ted were fast friends. And I can't begin to tell you all the kindnesses he showed me personally. "You are doing a great job," he would say. "Keep it up." But he would say this not when we had announced some success or achieved some milestone. He would say it at the most trying and difficult times. These are just a few of the thousands of acts of kindness that Father Ted quietly and without fanfare helped people who needed it.
One of the more personal moments from Father Jenkins' homily. He also told the congregation that Father Hesburgh died among loved ones Thursday. He was visited by several different Holy Cross priests and brothers. Sitting by his side at the time was his younger brother Jim, whom we also heard from during the service. But perhaps most compelling, though, Jenkins says, was that Father Ted had prayed and prayed that he would be able to say Mass the day he died. And of course, he was able to do that Thursday. Bob, Jennifer, back to you.
All right, Annie, thanks so much. You know, it was really wonderful listening to Father Jenkins. He had so many amazing stories. It really did him justice. I mean, he said, asking the question, how can we sum up the remarkable life of Father Hesburgh, someone who touched so many lives? And he said this, Father Ted gave the answer so often, saying he was first and foremost a priest.
And Annie also mentioned the brother Jim, who came in for the funeral, and he talked as well. And we so much think about Father Ted and all the public things he did, the Civil Rights Commission, allowing women into the University of Notre Dame, but we also don't hear about the private side of Father Ted, and it was interesting to see how overwhelmed his family, his personal family, is about all the outpouring of support and the love that university and really, quite honestly, the world is showing to Father Ted today.
Must be nice, but overwhelming to see all at the same time. You know, Father Hesburgh spent his life serving the poor. We've talked about this, and fighting for injustice in the world. He represented the Vatican in international affairs and is credited with making Notre Dame a place where the church does its thinking.
He traveled really so much that there was a joke on campus during his time on campus. People there would tease him that God is everywhere, but Father Hesburgh is everywhere but Notre Dame.
Yeah, Father Jenkins talked a little bit about this today when he traveled to Cambodian, you know, to help the starving Cambodian refugees. Talked about that a little bit when he did that in the 70s today. Despite the fact that he traveled around the world for the church, he always made it a priority to say daily Mass. In fact, that was something he did until the day he passed away. He was known for telling people they only needed a simple prayer when they experienced tough times. And his favorite prayer, in fact, was "Come, Holy Spirit."
Father Ted often said that was the prayer that really guided his life. He was very passionate about promoting peace and justice in the world. He really wanted to show his university how to be good citizens of the world.
The human touch is part of the reason we've seen such an outpouring of love over the past week on campus. WSBT-22's Kelly Stopczynski, I want to go back to her for just a moment. Spent a lot of time on campus. She's live along the procession route still. What have people been telling you? You've been sharing some of these memories that people are sharing with you about Father Ted.
And one thing that I have heard students consistently say, Jennifer, is, you know, we are a university, we come together in all times, including hard times, happy times, and sad times. One way we saw that happen earlier this week was shortly after Father Ted passed away. That happened at 11:30 last Thursday night. Students took to social media almost immediately after that, spread like wildfire, and by 1 a.m., hundreds met at the grotto on campus to light candles, share memories, pray, and cry. The students also spelled out Ted in candles. We've also seen banners and signs, as well as Father Ted's name spelled out in windows around campus. Just such fitting tributes for a man who did so much for this university. And when you talk to these students, they are well aware of Father Hesburgh's contributions to Notre Dame, our country, and the world. A Notre Dame senior told me yesterday after the visitation she chose to attend that service if for no other reason than to say thank you to Father Ted for everything he did. She noted if not for him, she might not even be here right now, because Father Ted led the crusade that allowed women to attend Notre Dame. And we've also spoken with many, many people who have talked about, you know, the importance of reading to Father Ted and what that meant to them as they went through their college career. I can tell you now, it's hard to see. It's on the other side of a tree. We're blocked by a tree right now, but I can see the beginning of the procession coming our way. So I'll send it back to you, Jennifer and Bob, just for a second, and I anticipate you'll come back out live to us in just a couple of minutes when that gets just a little bit closer.
Okay, and just to clarify, that procession just now leaving the church, so, you know, we're following this every step of the way. This is, I mean, it's been a remarkable day going through all of the things that he has done. 35 years as president, he has made some bold moves as president of the University of Notre Dame. He's really changed the shape of that university. I mean, if you think about the way the university was when he took control, it was a football university. It
was dramatically different than what we see today. And really, there's something called the Land O'Lakes Conference back in July of 1967, and Father Jenkins touched on that. And Professor Scott Appleby from the University of Notre Dame, who's seen as one of the leading experts on American Catholicism, said that that particular event was really somewhat of a declaration of independence for not only the University of Notre Dame, but Catholic education, the higher education in general, because it really separated Catholic education from the church necessarily. Not so much church teachings, in fact, not at all church teachings, but really giving them the latitude to have scholarly pursuits that didn't necessarily always reflect what the church was teaching at that particular moment. Always keeping the church in mind, but being able to ask critical questions of lots of different things. And that is just one thing that, of course, he opened the door for women as well, which was obviously very critical. Yeah, and we talked about some of the different things that he's accomplished over his time at Notre Dame. And one of the things that that he did was his work with the civil rights. You know? Oh, absolutely. That iconic picture of Reverend Hesburgh and Martin Luther King. You can see this procession making its way very slowly here. This is the front of the procession, as we're going to be watching that as it makes its way very slowly across the university campus. But that particular picture is so iconic, and we've seen time and again that picture and really what that stood for. And his work, though, didn't begin then. It actually really begun many years before that, but officially in 1957 when he started work with the Civil Rights Commission at the behest of the American president at that time. And that picture was really somewhat of a crowning moment, not only for Reverend Hesburgh, but his work, but also helped launch the Civil Rights Movement and the Act in 1964. So that really, he's front and center. And you can make an argument that civil rights would have happened had Father Hesburgh not been there, but you can also make the argument that he really helped spearhead it in an area of the world, an area of this country that perhaps wasn't necessarily on board at that point in time. Exactly. He was the 15th president of the university in 1952, and Kelly talked a little bit about what he was able to do because he was the leading force in starting coeducation. And she spoke with several of the women who have shown up on campus just to show their honors and almost say thank you for being a part of that university, because without him and his work in allowing women to attend the university in 1972 would not have happened without the work that he did. So let's go back out live here along the procession route to WSBT-22's Kelly Stopczynski so that she can give us a feel of what we're seeing here in these live pictures as the procession makes its way past where she is. Kelly?
So what you're seeing right now appears to be a Notre Dame police security car, an SUV, leading a group of people that are walking behind it. This is quite a large procession that we're seeing, and from where I am right now, I am not able to see the casket that is carrying Father Ted's body. You can see his brother priests right there in the front, directly behind that squad car, walking solemnly. This is what they do, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago. His fellow priests from the Congregation of the Holy Cross walking beside him, leading him to his final resting place, just as Father Ted did for so many of the priests who passed before him. I can also tell you, I'm not sure what time it is, but I could hear the bells tolling right now, ringing from the Basilica. It's important to point out this procession from the Basilica to the cemetery is normal protocol for services when a priest from the Holy Cross Order dies. And this is what Father Ted wanted from the very beginning. He said he wanted his services to be simple, just like everyone else, all of his other priests who have gone before him. So again, I am not yet, oh, there is the hearse. It is at the end of this line of people. You see the fellow priests walking at the very end there, just turning the corner. So I'm actually, as many of the students are doing out here, out of respect, I'm going to stop talking for a few minutes and just let you watch. All right, so again, what we are seeing is the procession and the hearse coming through. The hearse, of course, carrying Father Ted's body to his final resting place. And you can see he's being led by his fellow priests there. And a very solemn, somber mood out here, but also a lot of celebration, students are telling me. And I am once again going to pause, just out of respect, as the procession continues past us. Jennifer, Bob, I will let you take it from here when you're ready.
And we're going to wrap up our coverage of Father Hesburgh's funeral mass, but we will check back in with Kelly Stubsinski in just a few minutes on WSBT 22 News, first at 4. As soon as this funeral procession is wrapping up towards Holy Cross Community Cemetery, as you've been seeing, it's on its way. As Jennifer is going to bring us more information, the funeral procession will make its way to the cemetery, and that service is expected to last about 20 to 30 minutes and will not be covered live here on WSBT 22. But Patrick Roth is there, and he'll share that part of the story with us tonight at 5 and at 6. Then at 7:30 tonight, there is a memorial tribute to Father Ted in the Purcell Pavilion at the Joyce Center. At that event, former President Jimmy Carter, former First Lady Rosalind Carter, and former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice are expected to speak. That tribute will include music from Notre Dame student choirs and reflections from 9 other guests as well, including Indiana's Governor Mike Pence. We'll have complete coverage of that tribute tonight. WSBT 22 News at 11. And our crews are all around campus right now working hard to bring you more from this afternoon's events at 5 and at 6. But right now, let's head over to Jennifer for WSBT 22 News first at 4.